Okay. Another way of looking at consideration in contracts is called benefits and detriments. This is pretty straightforward. Suppose that we're not talking about selling something, but we're talking about doing something. Well, you agree to your detriment to do something. It's going to take you time to do something. And therefore, your consideration is your time. Now this, think about this. How many of you will be in consulting? Many of our MBAs go into consulting. It's your time that you're selling. So benefits and detriments is a good way to think about that. Even though you expect to be paid in cash, your consideration is your time, is your contribution to whatever's happening in the situation. So it's, again, it's the benefit of the bargain. You're going to hear that term over and over again. Now, this is a SCSI example here, which we see in a lot of contract chapters in business law books. This is Sean's uncle offers him $50,000 to give up partying for a year. So he has a right to party. So he's got a right to party. So if he gives up that right for a year, he's given up something. So the problem with this example is, I think this comes under the Pepsi fighter jet example, is that if this was, the problem is that Sean, first of all, how does Uncle know whether it's partying or not? Secondly, partying is not defined. Now, I could write this to make it enforceable. I could say, Sean, you may not do drugs for a year. And every month, at random, I'm going to send out the XYZ drug testing company, and they're going to test you. And if you flunk even one drug test in that year, the deal's off. Everybody see the difference? Yeah. So this is a sloppy example. Again, why is it written this way? Because the people who write these textbooks are not practicing attorneys. They don't know what it looks like in the real world. Plus, this is probably written by a GA. The slides are not written by the professor who wrote the book. They're written by graduate assistants. Right, Jeffrey?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, Jeffrey's holding the camera back there for us. That helps me with my research. So he's very familiar with the situation. Adequacy consideration we addressed a few minutes ago. It's consideration. The issue of adequacy, very, very hard to argue. Having said this, this is, again, this business law course. We're talking about business to business. Here is an important distinction. One of the most powerful laws in the country in favor of consumers, right here in Texas. Texas is viewed as a pro-business state. Texas has a very powerful consumer protection statute. Everybody all together. Texas Deceptive Trade Practices Act. Most of you, how many of you remember when Richard Alderman on Channel 2 News would talk about that, you know, like every Friday he'd do a little segment on DTPA. That's what we're talking about. Very powerful law. By the way, Alderman retired to Colorado. I was at a retirement party, so that's why we left him. They did his retirement party 6 months after he left. I thought that was kind of interesting. It's like, you needed an excuse for a party, so he said, oh, I said, who left? Oh, yeah, he left 6 months ago. So we'll call a party for him. So he showed up. He's a nice guy. But he literally wrote the book on the Texas DTPA and how it works. And you may say, gosh, this sounds like a very anti-business proposal. Let me give you an important piece of helpful information. It benefits individuals and businesses up to $25 million in revenue, which covers virtually all of my clients. So we use the DTPA for small businesses just the way you would use it as a consumer in a consumer transaction. Okay? It's an important thing to know. We had an example. We had a diesel truck, brand new diesel truck, motor burned out. There was a defective repair done right as the truck was bought by a local dealership. And motor burned up. The dealership said, well, the driver should have abandoned the truck as soon as it overheated and not made it towed into the shop. The driver's argument, of course drivers are not mechanics, was I could see the dealership from where I was on 45 North, and I just needed to go like less than a mile, go up, come back the other side of the freeway to the dealership. Bad move. because the motors were turned into a block of metal. Value of the motor, $20,000. So I sent a DTPA demand letter on behalf of the small business to the dealership, and I had the good fortune to copy the manufacturer, which was Isuzu. They don't sell, retail cars, but they sell trucks. And Isuzu decided to give them a new motor. The dealership never agreed to anything. We had to pay the dealership to put the new motor in, but we got a new motor out of the deal. My client for about $500 in legal fees, paid the dealership about $2 grand to put the motor in. So he figured the $2 grand, I'll write that off. I'm a business person, I'll write that off rather than go to court to try and get the additional cost of installing it and kind of self-admitting that his own driver may have contributed to the situation. So again, DTPA, very powerful in favor. Now, where this factors in on adequacy consideration is one of the concepts under the DTPA is called unconscionability. Say that fast even once. Unconscionability. Not a fair deal. You as business people are not going to have a good time arguing that. You as consumers say, I really got shafted. I thought I was buying a first quality, let's say you're going to put a swimming pool in your backyard and you pay $60,000 and you build the swimming pool of a lifetime, and then you find out that it's been done completely to the lowest possible standards, and you have an expert come out and says that this pool wasn't worth $5,000 and probably won't last one season. So you're pretty upset. This is when the DTPA comes in, this is going to be your argument. Adequacy and consideration. Now, if they made any specific representations about the quality of work or something like that, certainly you can pursue that. In addition to DTPA, you certainly can allege common law fraud. Standard in plaintiff's side is people suing you, business people. Plaintiff's side is going to be everything they can possibly think of, they'll throw at you. So, they're going to, depends on which side of the table you're on. But anyway, adequacy consideration, generally only going to be a consumer. We talked about $1 in hand paid. Again, we usually say $10. We're looking for bilateral contracts, and again, this is pretty standard in business. One of the things that's interesting, again, in a contrast between common law contracts and Uniform Commercial Code contracts, is you can make modifications and just agree to them. Generally speaking, in normal common law contracts, if there's a change in favor of one party or the other, there has to be consideration. Good example of this, you have a contract to build a custom house for $500,000. The homeowner wants a sauna added to the master bedroom bath, $25,000 addition. You don't have to agree to that. You're going to say, we're going to do a change order, and in exchange for the customer getting that steam bath, we're going to get $25,000 additional. And that's the way it's done in common law. Under the Uniform Commercial Code, maybe a little bit different. If it's understood between the parties that the additional cost is going to be recovered in the way things are done. You don't have to recite considerations. So again, slight differences, but significant between the two. We talked about liquidated and unliquidated claims. If there is no dispute, this is a slightly different application of liquidated. If there is no dispute about the loss, you paid $500 for something and it's nothing. It's completely defective. You lost $500. It's real straightforward. Liquidated in terms of the loss is easily established. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Being from another country, get certificates as well, obviously. When you get into a contract, for example, that's what I'm from, it is not legal until, even if both parties sign it, until it's not notarized, until it is presented to a notary and it's signed, and then it becomes legal. Here in the States, when you, let's say we do, I'm on construction, and then she wants me to do rebuild build something, put a new floor in our house.
Sure.
And then we sign the contract. Is that fully legal?
Yes.
Okay.
Very good question. The question is, in other countries, it is common for major contracts to be notarized. Here in the United States, we don't notarize very much today. We used to notarize car titles. We don't notarize car titles anymore as one of the last vestiges of using notaries on a routine deal. Where we still use notaries extensively are on real estate contracts. So generally speaking, big real estate transactions, you're going to have a closing, the notary's there. More so not on the deed, but on that mortgage, the deed of trust. They're going to be looking for notaries on that because they want to make sure that they've got you well bound before they put that big money up for your mortgage. And of course, if it's a business mortgage, it could be, you know, I was involved in a transaction earlier this year. It was a $10 million transaction. It was an $8 million mortgage. You better believe they want to have some notary stamps on that thing. So here it's basically very serious transactions. Sometimes on negotiations of settlement, they'll ask to have notaries just so nobody comes back later and says, I didn't agree to the deal. So we had a situation where a guy owed a bank $340,000. The bank agreed to compromise the debt for $250,000. The term we use is a haircut. So the bank took the biggest haircut I've been doing law 38 years, the biggest haircut I ever saw, $90,000 haircut. This is without the guy filing bankruptcy, but they were pretty sure he was going to file bankruptcy. So they were like, let me get this guy out of the bank. Let's get what we can get, take our losses and go. So in that case, you better believe there were a lot of notaries on that deal in both directions because the client wanted to make sure that the bank didn't renege on the deal, take the $250,000 that he paid in cash and say, whoops, well, we still want the other 90. And at the same time, the company, the bank that loaned him the $250 wanted to make sure that they had it bound up. So you got lots of notary stamps on that type of deal.
What was the collateral on that deal?
The collateral was gone. That's why it was a group of businesses that had failed, and it was the next to the last deal. And I'm pleased to say that the guy is actually a husband and wife couple that own these businesses, and they a few months ago closed the last part of closing that deal down. Lost to the family $2 million. So when the bank took a $90,000 haircut, the bank had made about $150,000 in interest and fees. I don't like to see people take a haircut. I don't like to be involved in it, but you know, frankly, my job is to take care of the client, and the client definitely would punish a great deal. You lose $2 million over a 5-year period. A lot of people take losses. The nature of the beast.
Yeah, and usually banks don't like to be on the front page for starving out, you know, grandma and granddad for the last penny.
And though I can tell you that there was so little love lost between the parties at the bank and this client that they probably wouldn't have minded being on the front page. But indeed, it's like, you know, familiar with melodramas, you know, where they have the villain in the tall stovepipe hat and all that to play the little music. Sometimes they don't mind doing that because they want to make sure other people know, by golly, we expect to get paid. And there's nothing wrong with that. And in my years of private practice, I'm a full-time academic today, but in my years of private practice, I wrote off over $200,000 in legal fees. Yeah. And so I'm not very sympathetic to people who walk on bills. But do my best if it's my guy. Most of the time I'm on the collection side. That was a rare case where we had to help the guy out. Let's look at another term that's similar to quantum Merowith equitable doctrine. It's called promissory estoppel. Estoppel, you may recall, you saw in your early chapters in the book, is a simple legal term. It's some old English. It just means you're prevented, estopped. Sounds like baby talk. You're prevented from making a certain statement. Okay, estoppel. Promissory estoppel means that your promise induced people to do something, and they relied on that promise, and therefore you cannot deny the existence of a contract. So this is a situation where you say to somebody, and this frankly, the very last deal, same guy, we got the bank take the haircut, his very last deal was a promissory estoppel deal. He's in his last lease of his last business, and it's limping along. It's losing about $1,000 a month. The lease is $4,000 a month. And the landlord comes to him, the rental agent for the landlord comes to him and says, I got some good news. We know you're limping along. You've got 18 months left in your lease. We have got, Starbucks is going to take your space. So he did, the client did something I would not have done. He's bleeding to death. He said, Starbucks is coming in. By golly, I'll just close it today. That was a bad move. What he should have done is limped along until they put it in writing. Remember, real estate, we're going to talk some more about that. Real estate, put it in writing. Real estate, put it in writing, always. So in any event, what happened was, of course, Starbucks, the economy here in Houston, you know, gas prices took a dive. Starbucks got cold feet and walked the deal before my guy got out of the deal. So then the landlord sued him for all of the unpaid rent, because of course he stopped paying rent when he closed the business. So
What was the monthly rent expense?
about $4,000. So he was losing $4,000 or $5,000 a month. So last I heard the case, I did not get involved because of the litigation. Again, I don't litigate. But the parties that were involved settled that part. They were sued for over $100,000 plus legal fees, and it settled for about $60,000. Still a lot of money, but I think my guy could have avoided it by just limping along until he actually had the deal, and you said, done. But in a better form, the rental agent comes out to fit promissory estoppel. The rental agent comes out and says, Starbucks has said they're going to rent it, you can close now. He closes now because the rental agent says it unequivocally, and then Starbucks doesn't come in. He says, oh, changed my mind. And the client understandably says, oh, wait a minute. We shut down, we were limping along, but we were still making some money, but you told us it was okay. So that's more promissory estoppel. Again, in this case, it was highly questionable whether the agent said you can close now. In fact, I think he probably didn't, and that's why they ended up paying $60,000. But frankly, given the heartache of running a business that you know is dying, and you have, he probably didn't lose all that much money because he was still paying every month, and the thing was doing this. So he may have been paying $1,000 loss this month. Frankly, by the end of 18 months, it may have been a great deal more than that. Plus, his time was valuable. So, you know, you're over there running a business in the ground, which is, you know, it's going white. But promissory estoppel is what factors in there. It's where you rely on that promise. But remember, it has to be a promise that you can document, and you justifiably rely on the promise. That's what creates that equitable revenue. Okay? So keep this in mind, and don't confuse with quantum mirror. Very similar though. Both equitable remedies. The two important terms that we talked about in the first half.